We do, most of our videos about relationships, and it would only be right to talk about how it first. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Steph. This is my wife Jay, and we represent StephJayINC. Oh, my shirt looks wrinkled. Does my shirt look wrinkled? Anyway.
Yeah, it's like wrinkled.
So today we're going to talk about how we first met. So we do most of our videos about relationships, and it would only be right to talk about how we first met. But before we do that, we want to say thank you for tuning in again. Hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you'll be notified when we post new videos. So,
and you know what? Why would they subscribe to us?
I don't know.
Why? Ask yourself why.
Because we have great information for couples relationships and helping you fulfill your relationship goals. And we talk about business as well. My wife and I both are entrepreneurs. So if you're looking for great content on relationships, business advice, motivation, inspiration, tune into our page. There it goes.
Good job.
My 1 minute pitch. All right, so how we met. So we actually met twice. First time we met, we were both at a gospel fest in Joliet, and I was playing for my brother at the time. I was at the time a full-time musician, a bass player, and so I was playing for my brother's band, and we were scheduled to play at the Joliet Gospel Fest, and I saw her, and actually she has the same hair color. She changed her hair colors quite
often. My hair is my real hair is actually like sandy brown. This has always been my go-to color.
Yeah. So this is my favorite hair color that she wears.
It is. That's why I changed it.
And she changed it for our anniversary. So, but that's when I saw her, I was like, wow. And the angels were like, oh, they were singing to me. And then God came down and was like, Adam, that's your Eve.
Storytime.
So, when I saw her, I was like, so I've been to a lot of gospel fests. I've been to a lot of events. She was one of the people who was in charge of showing the band where their waiting area is, and making sure, you wait in your area. And then when you call to go up on stage, you're ready. And I like I said, I've been to a lot of gospel fests as a full-time musician. So I ran into a lot of people, a lot of females who host events. And a lot of times, they aren't the nicest people that you want to run into. They're real bossy because, they're dealing with musicians, and musicians, we can kind of be, all over the place. So they're not really friendly. They're not really welcoming. And she was just the opposite. She's really friendly, really welcoming. I mean, the same smile she had then. And I'm like, wow, I got to say something. And so I asked her for a number. And then you tell your side of the story.
Crazy thing is.
Oh, wait. Okay, so hold on. Let me go back. So I wasn't supposed to even play at this gospel fest at the time, but I'm glad I did. On my way to the gospel fest, I wasn't really expecting to meet nobody, just being a full-time musician. But like I said, when I met her, just seeing her, and I was 18 at the time. She was 16. And so, like I said, I saw her. When we got in, we checked in, and we wrote our name down, and then we went to see. Then they was like, go see the person that's going to walk you to whatever. So we're going and see her, and automatically it's like. So here go, the angels are singing, and God comes down again, and he says, "No, he didn't. I just made all that up." So you can tell yourself.
So, I don't know why I feel like I was not 16.
You were 16.
But he said I was 16, so okay, I was 16, I guess. Maybe I was.
You're 2 years younger than me.
But I think, I don't know, for some reason, because I was dating someone. So that was my thing too.
You can't be 16 to date
I
somebody.
was no. That was, I think I remember, because I think that's when my mom let me date this guy. I was dating someone, and
No, don't get into that. Just talk about.
I know,
the
babe.
meeting.
But I'm telling how I met. So
Right.
I gave him my number.
No. Start over. How did your day start? Like, why were you?
God, you're killing me.
Right.
Okay, so I was at the Joliet Gospel Fest. I was a hostess, one of the hosts.
God told you that day, you have to go to the Joliet Gospel Fest and be a host. Dress
God
really
did
nice,
not tell me
and there's
that.
this guy that's gonna come with this band, and he's gonna be a bass player, and he's gonna ask you for your number, and you're gonna give it to him because he is the one for you.
I'm gonna let him tell. That's
Right.
that's the story.
That I don't know if that happened. Or not. Right,
No, that's not what happened. But I wasn't even expecting to meet him at all. Not nobody. I was dating somebody at the time, and so it was just I was just hosting, and I was just a happy person, friendly, very friendly, very friendly. Kind of calmed down a lot from being super friendly, because I was really, really friendly back then. Because anybody else probably wouldn't have gave another guy. They would have been like, "Oh, I got a boyfriend. I'm not giving you my number." But I was like, "Here." It was something about him that I truly liked. His eyes.
You got all of that, and
It was a spark.
we didn't really talk.
We didn't talk. We did not.
We didn't
but
really talk.
he just kept looking at me.
Play. She
No,
walked us to the
I
area we
did.
was at. I had to play, so I was kind of. Of course, I noticed her, and I kind of watched her the way she moved around, the way she handled herself, and after we played. I don't know if I asked you for your number before or after we played, because I don't remember. I don't remember how that happened.
It's been so long.
But go ahead. All right, I just interrupted you.
No, it's okay. So I mean, you can go ahead. I think I was.
So yeah. So after we met that time, like we talked for several months.
He did most of the work.
So her definition of dating someone is not the same definition. But she was only 16 also. So she didn't really understand, like, okay, dating somebody. And the dude, and I'm not going to say it, but I mean, apparently he wasn't the type of guy she wanted. So anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, so like I said, we talked for about six or 7 months after that, and then we kind of lost touch. I moved to California for a music production gig. She, okay, we kind of lost touch after a while.
We did.
Because I was still kind of on my own thing,
And I was in something myself, so I really didn't.
I wasn't ready to be in a serious relationship. And then I was traveling from back and forth from California.
And to be honest, when we stayed in touch, we were more friends. We weren't really
we
were like cool.
Yeah, I wasn't really pursuing. Yeah, we were really
Right.
friends.
Yeah.
And because she had told me, that she was really into church. Now, mind you, I met a lot of church girls, but they were not into church. They wasn't into God. Mm-hmm. They wasn't really serious about, trying to live up to, being a Christian woman. And when I talked to her, she was. So I really respected that. And so I was like, you know what? We'll just be friends, and we'll talk on a regular basis, and we'll try to keep in touch with each other. So, what was that? 2 years later?
It was a year, maybe a year or two. No, maybe two. Your cousin passed.
So it was like a year and a half later or something.
It's about a year.
My cousin passed, and she happened to be at the funeral. So talk about why you were at the funeral.
I was at the funeral because his cousin's wife was my cousin. So they called me. They called me for most funerals, most like church events. They called me for because I sing. So they called me, and I'm like, of course I'll be there. My mom came and picked me up from my dad's house. I was staying with my dad at the time, and she came and picked me up. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not going to go. Because I started feeling sick or something. I know that day. It was raining so hard and there was so much going on that day. Went to the funeral. And he called me to the keyboard.
You know, I didn't call you.
Or did I come over there? I think I went over to him. And I asked him, did he know? I did. I asked you, did you know? Just ask. And he just followed me. So I don't think he knew the song. He just followed me, and it was great. And then after that, we were in. It was the what were we? What do you call it? The repast.
Yeah, repast.
And he walked up to me, and he was like, "Hey," and I'm like. My mama right there, so I'm like, I don't know who this. My mama sitting right. I'm like, huh? I don't know who this is.
Okay, stop. Let's go back from my perspective. So it's my cousin's funeral. I had my parents ask me to play. I was actually just supposed to be there, you know, to support your family, but my parents asked me to play, and so you know, I was like, okay, sure, I'll play for my cousin's funeral, and so. I don't know her, my cousin. I wasn't familiar, well, I didn't know my cousin's wife's people. Put it that way. I met my cousin's wife, but I didn't know, I mean, that's only natural. You don't necessarily know all your cousin's wife's family, cousins, all that. So I didn't know. So she walks in the church, and mind you, her hair color was different from the first time I met her. When we met a year and a half ago, her hair was black. She dyed her hair black. So I hadn't seen her in about a year. We hadn't seen each other in a year and a half. We had talked over the phone, but we had not seen each other in person. So when I saw her, it was hard for me to recognize who she was. And so when she walked in, she had 3 kids with her. Mind you, I thought like okay. At first I thought
I did have them with
me. Yeah,
me.
she had her. Now she had 3 kids with her. Mind you, that she has a hair color the same way. She looks the same she does now. I don't look the same I did then. Most people told me back then I look like a little kid because I really didn't have any facial hair. I had like a mustache, and I was really, really skinny. So, most people thought I was a kid. Looking at her, I thought, man, this is a grown woman with 3 kids. But she still seemed kind of young, so at the time I was like, I had to be, I was 21. Yeah, I had to be 21.
No, you were 20 because
we got married.
We got married. You were 22.
Right. So,
but we started dating pretty much right after that funeral, and
we didn't date for that long though. We didn't date for a year, and we didn't date for 2 years.
We didn't date for 2 years though.
So I had to be 21.
Oh God.
So 18, 19, 20, almost 2. Yeah, it had almost been 2 or 3 years. 2.5 years since we've seen each other. Now that I think about it, now to come back, it's almost been 2.5 years since we've seen each other.
That's his story. I don't.
But we talked. So
we did talk.
But we lost. I want to say for almost a year, we kind of felt we lost touch with each other. Mm-hmm. So when I saw her at the funeral, I'm thinking okay, here's a grown woman with 3 kids, but she's the only person at the funeral I don't know, and out of my family members and friends. That's there, and so when she walks in, I kid you not, everybody, it's like the whole church, like everybody stops and looks at her.
For real, I remember that too.
And not only does she look like, okay, my wife is gorgeous, but now she has this walk, and she has this, it's not a seductive walk. It's like, I don't know what kind of walk it is.
Got that walk when you walk into the room.
But she has a walk about her. And so when I saw her, I'm like, okay, don't draw attention to yourself because you are playing at the funeral. And, I wanted to be respectful at the funeral. So when she sang, I don't remember her coming to me to ask me whether or not I knew the song.
I think
she just sang the song. They called her up. When she sang, she caught the spirit. And I'm like, oh, wow, she's really like...
He said I caught the spirit.
That's not a thing. I should know better. But But I'm saying to myself, like, okay, she's spiritually mature, like, you know, other than just somebody just singing at a funeral. So, because I've seen people sing at funerals and be real, I want to say robotic about it, real unemotional, like, just like, okay, I'm here to do my job, I'm here to sing, you know, and comfort the family. But she was really, really into it. And so I'm like, wow, like, she's spiritually mature. So after the funeral, and the repast was at the funeral home. So after the funeral, everybody's downstairs and such. And so now I see her mom. So when I saw her and her mom together, I'm like, maybe she doesn't look old enough to have 3 kids as old as they were. They were like 8, 9, right? 8, 9,
I had my
5.
younger siblings with me.
So 5, 8, 9, somewhere around there.
Young.
So I'm like, she's not old enough to have, still not old enough to have kids that old. And then when I saw her mom, I'm like, okay, those must be her siblings. And then I went over to her and I said, hey, you know, you did a very good job singing today, you know. And so, I mean, everybody else who was there came, you know, and said, man, like, you did an amazing job, you know, like you was really, really sang really well, and we enjoyed it. Thank you so much. You know, my family because my family didn't know her, that she was cousins of my cousin's wife. So they didn't know either. So they came over, hey, you know, like, we thank you for coming to sing. And so when I came over, I didn't want to try to holler at her at my cousin's funeral. I wanted to, you know, be as respectful as I could, but I just couldn't really. I was trying to talk to her, but not at the same time, not trying, because I didn't know. Again, I didn't know who she was. She could have been a family member. You see what I'm saying? So once I found out she wasn't a family member, because one of my cousins came to me and was like, "Do you know her?" And I'm like, "No." And then a couple of my other these are my male cousins. They are like, "You know her?" I'm like, "No." They like, "You know her?" I'm like, "No." So they all wonder, like, "Man, who is she?" So I'm like, you know, I don't know. So I finally go up to her and I say, hey, you know, how you doing? Like, I enjoyed your singing. She said, well, thank you for playing for me. And so all of a sudden, I remembered who she was. And I asked, I said, do you remember somebody from Joliet? And she said, no, I don't remember nobody from Joliet. And
I probably did remember him. My mama was right there, so I'm like, no.
And so she like, I'm like, you sure? Like, you don't remember nobody from Joliet? She was like, no, I don't. So after that was like after that I was like, oh, you know, you sang really well. Thank you for coming to sing for my family. And that was pretty much it. And I felt like, man, like,
something's not right.
Something's not right. So at the end of the funeral, you know, at the end of the repast, everybody's getting ready to go home. My dad rode with me because I drove my own truck. So at the end of the repast, I remember watching her and her mom, her sisters all go to their van. And so they're getting in their van, and I'm saying to myself, man, like, I'm probably not going to ever see her again. And I remember, like, man, we saw each other before. And I'm saying to myself, like, man, this is the last opportunity I ever get to see her again. So I'm going to stop and then let her tell her side. Tell your side. Like, what were you thinking?
I could not, it's crazy how I could not remember him. But he changed and I had changed. Like, he had, everything was different this time around.
Didn't I have dreads?
Braids? You had braids.
I think I had braids.
You had braids. When I first met him, it was locks.
Yeah, I had dreads.
He had dreads. Yep. So his appearance was so different. I could not, and I normally remember people, especially by their face, but we both had changed things, and I'm like, okay. I don't remember him, but he said Joliet, and so I just kept going back, but then I'm kind of like. Back then, I was in an organization where, you know, like my organization was real strict, like super strict. So it came to, you know, I'm like, my mama gonna be like, oh, she dating somebody else, and she talking to this guy over here, and I told her she could date. So I'm like, oh God, even though I'm old enough, you know, I was older, but I still had that respect for my mom, you know, being who she was. So I would be like, no, I don't remember you. And I might have remembered just a little bit, but I couldn't remember anything then. We leave the repast. We had to drop somebody off in our family. I think it was my aunt. Dropped her off. I'm almost at my house. My phone rings.
Stop.
He wants to tell us part.
So I'm watching her leave, and I'm like, man, this is the last time I'm gonna even get a chance to talk to her. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like, she's like she seemed like a really cool, like, man, I'm like, she seemed real cool. She's beautiful. She can sing. Like, she's spiritually mature. Like, man, like, she checked all of the she hit all the check marks. So I get in my truck and I'm like, God, I want to meet her again. Like, if I don't ask for one thing in my entire life, let me meet her again. Like, I know this is a funeral and I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to, you know, like, try to holler at her, ask her a number. But Lord, you work it out, Lord. So I'm driving home, me and my dad, you know, and we get home, and I say to myself, like, Now, she told me her name at the funeral, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she told me her name at the funeral, and so I'm like, Jaynita, let me look at I'm like trying to go through my head, like, man, what? So I go in my phone book. I had a phone book. All guys had that phone book. This was before this was like early cell phone days. So I had a phone book, and I had all the numbers of the girls that I've dated before in my phone book. But because at this time I was trying to better myself and really follow God and really get myself together, I scratched off almost all, matter of fact, all the names in the phone book. I scratched them out. And I actually threw pages of it away just to make sure I couldn't call, you know, the bad ones. So I'm going through the phone book. I'm like, oh man, I ain't no numbers in this thing, man, and they're all scratched out. I go and I look, Jaynita, her name is in my phone book, but it's kind of like scratched out. But it's scratched out just enough for me to make out her name and the number. God. And I'm like, okay, let me call. Now here's the thing is, what are the chances of somebody having the same number, especially early cell phone days? Like, like, you get a new phone every other, you know, whatever phone comes out. So what are the chances of her having the same number 2.5 years later?
I had that number.
That's crazy. Ooh. So I changed phone numbers, like, man, I think that was like my third phone, because, you know, phone, every time new phone come out, you want the new phone, right? So I look in the phone number and I make out the phone number, and I just happen to make out the right number. Like I say, it's scratched out. So it's amazing that I even made out the right. I should have kept that. I should have kept it.
We should have kept it.
But it's amazing that I made out her phone number because it was scratched out so badly. So I called. I'm like, oh snap! This is a real working number. Hello?
I was like, hello? And he was like, is this Jaynita?
So I'm like, is this Jaynita? She's like,
huh?
And I'm like, did you just sing at a funeral today?
And I'm like, yes. Like, I was shocked. I'm like, yes. And my mom is driving, so I'm like, yes. And then he was like, this is the guy who played for you. And I say, oh. No.
First he was like, how did you know that? And I'm like, well,
yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm the guy who played for you. She's like, really? And she was like, let me call you back.
And then, because I had to, I'm like, let me call you when I get into the house.
I'm like, no, dude. Hang up. Please.
I'm like, I'm going to call you as soon as, I cleared it up. I was like, I'm going to call you as soon as I get into the house because I'm getting, I'm getting dropped out.
I'm thinking she faking, like
I wasn't going to call back.
About to ghost me, like.
And at first I did think that, but I wasn't. Then I had just gotten out of a serious dating ship or whatever. Nothing. But that was pretty much my first real boyfriend that my mom let me date. So I feel like that was something serious. Just started dating. I'm like, okay, I just I'm out of that. And then all of a sudden he comes. We talked. I think we fell asleep on the phone.
Yeah, that night we talked all
I fell asleep on the phone.
All night.
We fell asleep on the phone.
Night.
And that's when I knew. I'm like, wow.
We talked
all night.
All
night.
night.
And then after that, we just kept talking. He was like, can I take you on a date? And I'm like, I got to ask him. Let me ask my dad. And I was like, I got to talk to my, my stepmom. Because then I was living with them. And then I was like, okay, let me see.
And the rest is history.
It's so much history. And here it is. Here we are. And it's such a blessing.
Hope you like this.
Guys. This is our story time.
Let us know what your story is. How you met your significant other.
In the
if
comments.
You got a crazy story like we had.
We had a crazy story. We met twice. Literally. And he remembered me, but I didn't remember him. So it was, a lot, story time, how we met. You like to know more, let us know in the comments. I'll have our email in the comments because I notice a lot of people like to email us about like questions and things. They don't like to leave comments. Some people don't like to leave comments. So just, email us, comment, and we're going to talk about this soulmate stuff because I'm sure a lot of you will want to hear about that. Me, myself as well. See how you learn something? You learn something daily. Something new every day. It's always something. You never know. All right. Thank you all for liking, for commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Stay blessed.
Peace.